Welcome to Talk Commerce, where we explore how merchants, agencies, and developers experience commerce and the communities they work and live in. This week, we interview Danny Verkade with Cream. Danny is the CTO of Cream, a leading Magento agency in the Netherlands. He is also on the Magento Association board. We discuss his experience around the Hyva theme and how it fits into the Magento ecosystem. We go over some of the tools that merchants can use to constantly evaluate the performance of their website. We talk about how someone can easily get into Hyva and why they should. We finish up the conversation with the Magento Association and some of the future events, big and small. The Talk Commerce podcast is sponsored by SWIFTOTTER. E-commerce developers solve problems daily. In fact, some of those seem like mountainous hurdles that must be climbed in a matter of hours. Stress levels can go through the roof. No wonder the plague of burnout affects developers too. But there's a vaccine for that. Investing time in your career will take you farther than you ever imagined. Meet SWIFTOTTER. SWIFTOTTER exists to help you become the e-commerce hero that is indispensable and irreplaceable at your company. We do this through Magento certification study materials and Joseph Maxwell's most recent book, The Art of E-commerce Debugging. Go to swiftotter.com to learn more about how you can quickly climb the ranks in your quest to be a better developer. While you're there, use the coupon code TALKCommerce for 15% off any digital goods at swiftotter.com. Cloud is the new normal for companies of any size. Buying, maintaining, upgrading, and disposing of machines is expensive and complicated. Amazon Web Services, managed by eWay offers an easy-to-use, flexible, cost-effective solution to all your infrastructure needs. eWay can provide a secure, reliable, scalable, high-performance network that will make your office hum, not literally. eWay has saved its customers an average of 31% on their IT costs while adding 62% to the bottom line efficiency. To top that, their customers have seen 43% fewer security incidents. Go to ewaycorp.com to learn how you can start saving money and headaches by moving to the cloud. That's ewaycorp.com. My name is Brent Peterson, and I'm your host. Please remember to subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Talk Commerce. Welcome to this special episode of Talk Commerce, Talk Commerce, Talk Commerce. Today I have Danny Verkade, and he's going to pronounce, I've already butchered his name, but Danny, introduce yourself. Tell us the correct pronunciation of your name.
Yes, so in Dutch that would be Danny.
Tell us what you do and one of your passions.
So in Dutch that would be Danny Verkade, which is also known as a chocolate brand here in the Netherlands. So I do get a lot of comments on that one when I need to spell out my last name. And to be honest, I'm a chocolate freak. So you can wake me up anytime to get one of those bars. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at an agency called Cream here in the Netherlands. And we're a Magento agency. I lead the development teams here.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for coming. Today, we have got a couple topics we're going to cover, but the main topic that we'll jump into today is the Hyva theme. And I see that I know that you've had some experience around it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know about the Hyva theme and some of your experiences?
Yeah, so with Magento 2, they announced basically that the Luma theme got deprecated, that there's no longer any development being done on it. So we started to look at the alternatives at that point, which were the different PWA solutions. So our teams looked at PWA Studio, Vue Storefront, React Storefront, as well as the DAT Falcon product. We also got a little bit of experience with those products by doing R&D as well as some contracting work where we did some Vue Storefront stuff. But we were at one point where those solutions didn't really fit us as an agency. Where we see that with a PWA, you are trying to develop everything again and again for different clients. Whereas we as an agency, we have multiple clients and we want to leverage some components easily between different projects or reuse them. Whereas within the PWA ecosystem, that was a little bit more difficult. So we were kind of discussing that internally, and then right at that point, Willem had the Reacticon presentation on Hyva. Me and our front end lead were both looking at that separately, and we connected and we're like, hey, this might be something. Let's have a look, let's have a talk, and let's have a look what this product is and what it does and how it works. So that's how we got to know Hyva and how we got started, basically.
I think if you look back on it too, that the Hoofa theme is such a simple solution that nobody thought about, and maybe some ideas around why nobody came up with this concept. Is the Luma theme so ingrained that people don't want to change it?
Yeah, I think if you look at Magento as a product, there are some core components in there which are really powerful. The block structure, the XML stuff, right? And that can be leveraged. But maybe we as a community were so used to a Luma theme, which is slow and like not scoring high in Google page speed, that nobody looked at how can we optimize it or how can we redo it using those components and make it fun to work with those systems again.
I know speaking with Yessa about the Luma theme, he said that you could spend as much time building a new theme as you would trying to make the Luma theme faster, and the Luma theme still wouldn't be fast.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, yeah. But that's basically the way that the Luma theme and that front end part is being architectured, right? With require AS, loading the different components like 300 JavaScript files on a single page request. You can bundle them, but still there's all patchwork on top of that. So what Willem did is really nice. Just remove everything and start over, building up the front end layer by layer. And it has some really nice results.
Yeah, and I think the ironic part about that is that's exactly what the PWA Studio is doing, but it's just doing it in a completely different technology, and
Yes,
you have to deploy it on a different stack.
correct. And like a lot of third-party vendors, which have extensions and business logic that a lot of merchants want to use, you can use that module, but PWA Studio or the PWA solution is not ready for that. So you need to build that business logic again on the PWA side. Whereas with the Hyva theme, obviously some components are not working because it's based on the third-party extension is based on the Luma theme. But with the help of the community, we're trying to make sure that those modules, or at least the most used ones, are compatible with the Hyva theme as well. So you see that the Magento community here is really coming together, pushing customizations to make those third-party integrations work with the Hyva theme. And basically everybody can leverage that again.
I know that John Hughes put a lot of time into the page builder section for Hoofa. What is it, if you're a developer, or if you were to say something to a developer around having to build out that functionality, what sort of time, or to replace the existing Luma functionality? Is there an easy way to kind of describe the time that would happen?
Well, it depends on the complexity of the module. That thing is that foremost. I know the team has done a couple of compatibility fixes. I think they either took 1 or 2 hours to half a day, something like that, in that range, which was for a couple of Amasti modules where there was no compatibility yet.
And do you see third-party vendors now starting to build out that functionality for Hoofa, or is it still too early?
Not yet. So we as an agency try to push them like, hey, are you looking at this? Are you adding compatibility? And I think if other merchants or agencies will be pushing that to third-party vendors as well, hopefully they will notice and like say, this is something that we need to support and start doing that. Obviously, that makes our life a little bit more easy. Yeah, so hopefully they will look at this podcast as well, and then they were like, "Hey, we need to do this."
Yeah, I think so. Tell us a little bit about. I don't know if you can name the merchant that you've how many you've done a couple of launches on the Hyva theme.
We've done our first launch, which is for a company selling and renting trailers. So the URL for that one is vollebrecht-aanhangwagens.nl. Maybe put a link in the description below or something. We hit a page score of 100 for that site, or 99, I think. So it's pretty high up there. And we're currently doing, I think, 3 different projects as well, which should be launching, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in a week or 2. There should be a next one out.
So tell us I'm not sure how much you had on the sales side, but the sort of interaction with the customer on, did you have to convince them to go with this, or is this just like, this is a no-brainer, let's do this?
No, it's just what we're offering the customer. And to be honest, like there's not one merchant coming to us and saying, I need a PWA. The merchant is asking for, I need a fast site, because they know that a fast site is converting better. They really don't care about the tech stack underneath that. So it's quite an easy sell, to be honest, I think, yeah. Especially now that we have some demo work that we can show as well. Like, all right, this is what we're able to offer.
Yeah, and I think the exciting part too is that so the Magento community, or Magento Adobe now competes directly against some of these other platforms that, are advertising less than 500 millisecond load times, or less than 1 second or 1 second load time. I recently interviewed Michael Turk with Spriker, and he laughed when I said a half a second. He said his loads in a quarter a second, 250 milliseconds.
Yeah, but load time is not the only thing that matters, right? It's also like the feeling of the user when he or she can interact with the site. So yeah, there are different components there. So it's a little bit load time, of course, is important, but it's also, it has more layers than just only load time.
Yeah, so I think CLS is a big one now that Google is starting to look at. And maybe you could describe what the difference is between the Luma for CLS loading and for Hyva?
CLS as in the
Content layout
writing.
shift.
Oh, I should talk to my front-end lead on that one.
That's where, basically the content will shift as it loads.
Yeah.
And you want to have as little as possible.
Correct. Yeah. If I remember, we're hitting that pretty well for the project that we did. Yeah. So it's better than with the Luma team, where you know that all kinds of components are like appearing and then shifting.
Right. Yeah, I know that Willem. There are some new things that have come out recently from Google on page ranking, and it's important that merchants know that these are even more important for their search ranking.
Yeah. Everything counts, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Do you have experience with any other platforms, or are you Magento only shop?
We are a Magento only shop, yeah. So we just moved our last Magento 1 clients, either offboarded them or put a Magento 2 project in place. So that's now a closed chapter for us. So we can now finally focus full on Magento 2. And our philosophy is that you need to be good at what you do. And like with the transition from M1 to M2, there was no other platform that could be existing in parallel to those two. There's a learning curve there. Yeah.
Are most of your clients in the Dutch market?
Most of them are. We do have a couple of international clients, Sweden and the US. Yeah, we do work remotely as well.
And what other platforms do you see them looking at when they come to you?
Well, I think that depends on the market. In the US, Shopify is pretty big and an obvious choice if you can live with a more out-of-the-box solution and you don't need heavy customizations. Here in Europe, there are a lot of, or there are a few SaaS providers as well, but they're a little bit less known. But one which is gaining traction currently is Shopware, where a lot of, I think also guys from the Magento community moved over, transitioned over. And you do see agencies here in the Netherlands moving from Magento to Shopware as well. Whereas basically every agency did Magento at one point, it's now a little bit different, the landscape.
On the SaaS platforms, I know that you have to, any customizations you have to do in Shopify would have to be done in the theme, or in, I think they call it Liquid is the programming language, and that you do loops and all kinds of stuff inside of this theming. Do you see any possibility that they could compete at this level of speed as now we can do with Magento?
The speed of development or the speed of the site?
The speed of the site.
The speed of the site. Well, if you strip everything out of there, it will be fast, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
If they have a clean tech stack, they could compete on speed as well. But you also have speed of development, extensibility, and that's something where Magento really shines, I think, compared to other platforms.
And have you seen now the build that you've launched with Hyva that's gone faster than your typical build, or about the same?
Yes, because normally when you do a new project with a kind of a new tech stack, you incorporate some learning time and learning curve time with the developers in there. But we actually hit it on budget. So that was really nice. Yeah, so that was better than expected, for sure.
And what are some of the things that you could say to a merchant when they're talking about budget and time for development that would make them comfortable with going with the Hyva theme?
Yeah, and to circle back to the previous question a little bit. So what we did is we had quite a simple project that we started with. So there were not a lot of third-party integrations, no complex functionality. So that made we reduced risk in the project basically to start with. And every week or 2 weeks, we evaluated like, all right, where are we? How is this going? Is this still looking as a tech stack that we want to use for other clients as well? And well, we got more comfortable every 2 weeks after the review, and then decided to pitch it to different clients as well. And then your question about speed of merchants.
I asked about no, I think it's around it's around convincing him. Well, I guess it's around how you talk to the merchant around the speed, but I think you've already answered that question.
Yeah. So basically, merchants know that speed is important. So that conversation comes up. But like the tech stack we're using or how we're gonna accomplish that's another level. They trust us as an agency to give them the best solution that's currently available. Yeah, so that's what we're offering.
And as you're building the solution, do you go through some speed tests to make sure that you're hitting some marks before launch so you don't have to do a lot of post work?
Yes, pre-launch as well as post-launch. Sometimes, right, there's a deadline, you hit MVP, you launch, and you know that there are still things that can be changed in order to improve speed or performance. So yeah, with most clients, there's a backlog of stuff that we still can do, and we can pick up regularly when the client has budget again or wants to move forward or whatever.
Do you still encounter clients that their only important thing is just features? They don't care about speed?
No, it comes up in every conversation, to be honest. Yeah, yeah, and even during a build, but also after, like 6 months after a launch, to review again or to see how conversion can be increased by leveraging new technologies that came out, like using WebP instead of JPEG images. Right, so you want to keep in touch with those customers and let them know what the latest stuff is and which we can use or implement within their e-commerce platform to make it even faster and better.
I think it's ironic that okay, I shouldn't say this. A lot of customers on Magento were complacent with their speed of their site, or they didn't think about that as they went forward. And I know that we talked a little bit about our 2019 New York Marathon experience, and I had to fly to Belgium that night. And so it was consulting with a client. I won't name the client, but their site loaded in about 10 seconds. And they asked me, is this normal? I said, 10 seconds isn't quite normal. We can get to 4 seconds. And they were very happy to try to work
Yeah,
on that.
yeah,
And their site was live. I think that we need to, as a community, really need to start pushing everybody to lower this threshold and stop this complacency around 4 second load times or whatever, 2 second load times. It should now be 1 second. Really, really push
yes,
it.
I would agree. So we as agencies or developers, we always need to do our best in order to make the fastest site possible. But there's also the other side, whereas the customer, where we can create a great project with the Hyva theme, like it loads fast. But if the client decides to upload a marketing banner of 4 megabytes on the homepage, yeah, there will be a drain there. So it's not only on the agency side, but also on the merchant side to take that into account and be aware of things they do that they do have speed impact. Another example is a lot of clients are using Google Tag Manager. Yeah, you can place all kinds of different tags in there for remarketing purposes. I don't know, I've seen a MailChimp newsletter pop up in there, all kinds of stuff. It all degrades the performance. So that's something that merchants have to take into account as well.
What tools do you advise a merchant to use when they're just doing their front end evaluations? Would you Google
Evaluation
Lighthouse,
as in, oh yeah, yeah.
metrics?
Lighthouse webpage test.org. And you can also look at the performance score with a New Relic, like with real user measurements. So different tools out there. What's important is that you agree with a client on which tools you use and how to measure them. Because else you could come into a discussion like, I'm seeing a 1.5 second load time, and then I'm seeing a 1 second load time. And there can be a discussion around what the actual load time is. So I would say settle on a particular measurement and try to improve that one, because the different tools out there are measuring differently, and the load time is different between those tools as well.
Yeah, and those tools also load in different locations. So if you
Yeah,
choose Virginia,
another one.
USA
Yeah,
versus Dublin or London or
yeah.
Amsterdam, your load time is going to be different.
And for an international client selling in multiple countries, I guess it makes sense to check multiple locations. If you're a US merchant selling to Europe, you want to be sure that your site is fast in Europe as well. So you definitely should check from a European standpoint, as well as a US standpoint in that case. And you can also see the difference in load time between the locations.
And do you feel that now the Google Lighthouse score is a good benchmark that we could use as our basis on performance testing?
We should. Those Lightmark scores change. We've seen previous sites where we hit a pretty decent score based on a Luma theme, and we see it degraded over time. So it got lower. So Google is changing that as well and constantly optimizing that. So that needs to push us as developers to make sure that we still have high scores in the future as well, even for existing projects that you already delivered.
Yeah, and I think it's important as a merchant to remember to always ask your agency to be proactive about these speed tests. And a lot of
Yeah.
these APIs or a lot of these testing platforms have APIs that are open, and you can either do paid or free testing on those APIs, and the client could get a automated report every month with those speed tests. And I know if we have a couple of clients that we will red flag, broad jumps in slowness because of what you said earlier about loading a marketing banner, or hey, we've got a big sale coming up, so we're going to load 3 marketing banners and it's got all load at once.
Yeah, and if you do that regularly, you can always track back what change was made. Is that a change that was pushed by the agency or developers? Is that a change that was made in the content? It's easier to track to that particular issue when you do that, I don't know, once a month or once a week, instead of once half a year or once a year, where there might be a huge gap between the 2 performance scores, and then you need to try and figure out what's the root cause of that one.
Could you maybe explain why the Hoofa theme is faster, or put it into the terms of a client, and you're trying to explain to them that this is why the Hoofa theme is faster? Don't get too technical, but maybe in a way that everybody could understand easily.
Yeah, so the Luma theme comes with a lot of overhead, and basically that's been removed with the Hyva theme. Tech stack built from the ground up, small, and if you look at the most the biggest performance bottleneck with the Luma theme is the JavaScript. With the way it's built, with require.js, as well as the number of files. So if you by removing that and taking a different approach on that particular part, there was already a huge improvement in performance.
Do you think it's a fair thing to say that the difference would be that if you were to walk into a real store, you would have to collect every single product in the store and put it in your cart, and then figure out which ones you have by putting them all back, compared to just going to the products that you want? I'm just trying to make an analogy that a client, a real analogy that the client could understand, or merchant could understand. So I know, I think I know where we're going here. The idea is that we're not loading everything at once. We're loading what we need as it loads, right?
Yes. And I don't know if it's not like you needed to put all the products in your cart, but
Or
you
maybe
needed to be all over the store before you would get to the product.
Yeah. So a better thing would be you have to look at every product in the store before you would buy one product.
Yes. Yeah. And do a quick run through the cash register before you can actually put it in your cart, because there are some components coming from there as well, which are already loaded. Yeah. And it also feels like if you're at the cash register, then the cashier still needs to build the register before it could actually check you out.
Right. Yeah. So, I think for me anyways, the bottom line is that the Hoofa theme has been a little bit of a revolution, but a long time coming for the performance of Magento, and that it also has the ability to build out solutions that are going to be and are already less expensive than what we can do with alternatives.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something that we definitely see if we compare to a PWA solution, our time to build, the development efforts. So that basically the total cost of ownership for the merchant is lower than that we would do a PWA, significantly lower.
And I know from a PWA, the progressive web app solution that Magento is pushing, or Adobe is pushing right now,
Yeah.
the biggest difference from a tech stack is that your technical people, your developers, really have to be React developers. You can't just take a Magento developer and say, do this PWA.
Correct. Where in Magento 1, a developer could still do a little bit of back end and front end. That already came clear in Magento 2. There was the separation was more clear. But if we were to go fully PWA, then we need to retrain either our current team to be a React developer, or we need to build a different kind of team in order to take on those projects. Yeah, being so close to the Magento core with the Hyva theme, so that there was some learning curve there because, well, the technology is a little bit different. The Tailwind CSS is a little bit different than what they're used to, but it was not a really big learning curve, so they could start pretty fast with it and understand it pretty fast.
And maybe just one last question from a developer standpoint. If you have a new developer, not a new person who is to Hyva, not a new Magento developer, but a front end developer, would they have to know any back end items to develop or to redo the features that existed in Luma for Hyva? Would they just have to redo the JavaScript functions?
Redo the JavaScript basically. Yeah. And well, with all the GraphQL calls or API endpoints now available, you can leverage that to fetch the data that you need instead of, I know sometimes it used to be a REST call or Ajax call or something. So yeah, with that documentation, they can fully make a third-party extension compatible to the theme for sure.
Great. So just kind of moving on or changing subjects here, I know that you have been involved with the Magento Association and the Magento community for a long time. You're a Magento Master.
Yes, 2018, so a while back.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Magento Association, or maybe tell us what the Magento Association is and how you got involved.
Yeah, I think Ben and Brittany started that within Magento to have a separate entity to leverage the Meet Magento events. And I was invited to be part of a task force to form the first board of the association. We had a lot of discussions about vision, mission, statements, as well as what kind of programming the association could take on. Eventually, there were 2 people from the task force that moved over to the first board to have some continuation in there. And the board has a 3-year term. So let me see, how far are we in? I think 2 years already. So I guess next year there should be some re-elections going on, if I'm not mistaken. So don't. Yeah, at that point, a couple of the people of the board will transition off, and new ones will onboard at that point.
So the Magento Association is there to represent the Magento community. Would you?
Yeah. And it's
and
and that means everyone within the community. So we're talking developers, agencies, merchants, as well as third-party vendors, everything that has something to do with Magento, the association should represent.
Yeah, no, it should be more than just Meet Magentos now. And I know that I'm on the membership committee, so we are looking for ways to get more people to join.
And have great member benefits, right?
Absolutely, yes. So what would be
One drives the other, I guess.
what would be your pitch to a merchant right now? Why would a merchant need to join or want to join the Magento Association?
Well, I think it's important for the association to actually be able to represent the whole community. So the more members we have, the better we could represent that community, because we can talk as that community as a whole, to Adobe, to other participants within the community as well. So that's why it's important to join. We also have some great programming happening and coming up. Later this year, there will be a podcast of a couple of episodes. That one is currently being created. We have some training and webinars sessions coming up, where the first one is a little bit more developer focused, to learn more about how you could gain your Adobe Magento 2 certification. But there's a couple of webinars coming there as well. What else? Training, podcast. Yeah, obviously there are gonna be more in-person events again with COVID, hopefully slowing a little bit more down. So we support those Meet Magento events, as well as do another Magento Connect in the date, I think, is in October. And that has just been set firm on the calendar, so that should be announced soon as well. So there will be another virtual Magento Connect event.
Yeah, and I know one thing from the event standpoint, one thing that I've been pushing for is the more inclusive events that aren't geared towards big venues and a big budget, and including places that haven't had an event. So for example, there hasn't been a Meet Magento in Africa, and part of the reason is there's nobody to do the event. And then the expectation in the past of the events were you have to pay $5,000 and that's it. And you should be getting 400 people at your event. And if you haven't done that, you know, the idea is that you haven't failed, but you haven't made what the event should be.
Yeah, I think you touched an interesting point there. So Africa is definitely an underserved market. We do not have a lot of visibility there on how big the community is. Is there even a community? Who's in there? Who's participating? So yeah, that's definitely an interesting place, because we know there are Magento developers there, but they're not really organized at this point, I think. So hopefully that will gain traction as well, and we can be a diverse group worldwide where everybody is being represented by the Magento Association.
Yeah, and I believe there should be sort of a middle size event or an event that is not, it's not a Magento meetup. It's a Magento Association event or a sanctioned event, or we'd have some kind of we'd have a framework around the event, but there's no expectation on membership or attendance. It could be 50 people.
Yeah, not like a
just
meetup where you got like a get together of 5 to 10 people, maybe 20. And like a Meet Magento events is a couple of hundred, I guess, normally. So something between 50 and 200.
Yeah, I mean, it could be free too. Yeah, you know, that we're just, there has to be a point in which you make the community, you make everybody aware of the community. And if you expect that to start an event and everybody is aware, that can't happen. I also believe there has to be some kind of seeding of that event. So somebody from the Magento Association has to help seed someplace. And if that person helps to organize that event in that far off location, I think that should also be okay.
Yeah. especially in those areas where we don't have any representation. We do have a D&I committee, so they could look into that as well to make sure that we are able to reach those areas and those people. Yeah, that could be an interesting point.
Yeah, and part of this too is just around if you were to, part of this is having the vision to organize the event and doing the event. And doing all of that helps to create awareness around the event, even if your attendance is low.
Yeah.
I think people need to recognize that organizing it is far harder than actually doing the event that day. All the prep work and months of planning and advertising and all those things are much more difficult than it is to actually put the event on in that day.
Yeah, I think events have always been the cornerstone of the Magento community. So I personally have the feeling that's been taken from us right now. Even though with virtual events, it just feels differently. And to be honest, I really would like to have a get together again with people from the community and touch base on everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going to. I've only been to one Meet Magento Netherlands event, but it was very fun, and it was a really good experience. And I don't think you can get that experience online.
No, unfortunately not. Even with the Hopin platform where you can do some network, it just feels differently than an in-person event. I guess that's never going to be replaced. However, I did read an article about the Adobe Summit, and they are not really clear if that will be an in-person event next year even.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is that we want to put on the big damn run, and we need to.
I would like to do a run again.
Yeah, I can't do any more virtual marathons. I'm tired.
You got the picture behind you. Like a truly amazing community event, right? So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that you could say the Magento community, from a developer standpoint, is the best community in the world.
Yes, true. Yeah.
I'm sure people from Drupal or WordPress would argue with that, but
the best e-commerce community in the world.
We are the best. We are the best community in the world, hands down. How's that?
And that's always been the strong point. Whereas from the merchant sides, I guess it's always been a little bit difficult to reach them, and they're really busy with their business. Whereas if they would join the community as well, I think there would be a lot of benefits for them if they talk to other merchants, get to know other merchants. Like, you don't have to be a competitor to exchange ideas on what's working, what's not working, or where you're at with different things. You can benefit each other. So yeah, that's one point where the Magento Association is really trying to push forward to make sure that we reach those merchants as well. So that's why recently there was a position free because somebody stepped down on the board. So we invited another merchant to be on the board to drive that effort and truly make sure that those merchants are joining and will be represented by the Magento Association as well.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point too. Joining all, if anything, from joining, you would get the newsletter, which has relevant topics, and the blog and everything that has relevant topics to everybody's store.
Yeah.
Or storefront or whatever. Great. So we have about 5-10 minutes left here. What are you reading, or what podcasts are you listening to keep you up to speed on technology nowadays?
Oh, I like to read TechCrunch a lot, to be honest. So not really only e-commerce focused, but a little bit broader. So what's going on in the marketplace and what's happening, what might be interesting technologies that could trickle down to e-commerce eventually and make its way there. So that's my favorite go-to place, to be honest.
And we'll put all these links in the show notes after, so people don't have to back up and try to listen. If you had an opportunity to tell a merchant, or if somebody asks you what kind of advice could you give them on their store, or what is there a little nugget that you would say to people right now? What would you tell a merchant?
What I would tell a merchant right now, if you are considering PWA, be sure to look at the Hyva theme as well, and make a good comparison with the two. Both have benefits and disadvantages. I feel like the Hyva one would be more geared towards medium type of businesses, where the PWA could work really well for more high-end and enterprise merchants.
And I think it's important too that merchants understand that there are different deployment models and different
Yeah.
tech stacks for each of those.
And what's
And that,
involved, and what will be the total cost of ownership? Because if you do the PWA one, well, you need a Magento infrastructure as well as the infrastructure to run Node.js, for instance, if you're gonna go for React Storefront. Whereas the Hyva one is just one out-of-the-box solution.
yeah, I did do an interview with Vinay Kopp about Hyva versus PWA, and you could imagine his opinion on PWA. Do you see a gap in features that you can't get on the Hyva theme that you can get in the PWA?
Currently, not really, because a PWA is not really a different tech stack. It's just a couple of tech components packed together, and bundled in a new naming, basically. So if you want to have an app that could be installed locally, that can be done with Hyva as well. So it's pretty close to each other. It's just a different tech stack and a different approach.
But the experience from the merchant could be identical or very
Yes.
similar, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So at the end of the show here, I always like to give somebody a opportunity to do a shameless plug of whatever you'd like to do. So go ahead and tell us anything you'd like to plug.
Well, I think we discussed a lot about the Magento Association and that we need to represent the whole Magento community. So I encourage everybody to go to magentoassociation.org and sign up and be a member, so that we have a big and good community base that we can leverage against talking to different partners and Adobe.
Yeah, and I will just continue with that as I'm on the membership committee. There is lots of great value that you get out of only just being a member, regardless of discounts or whatever could be coming out in the future. There is good value. There is great value. There is fantastic value in getting the content that's being generated by the community. So I just want to stress that the Magento Association is something that is run by the community. There are very few paid people. There's an administration organization behind it that does get paid, but the members on the community, we're all volunteers, and we all volunteer our time to help make this a better community. And merchants can benefit from that, knowing that people aren't there to try to sell them something other than buying into the community, which is completely free.
Yes, and that's why we want to drive the community forward.
Yep. So my little plug at the end here is that I'm trying to organize a unconference in Orlando, Florida in January of 2022. I would like to wrap
Sounds
it
like
around.
the perfect location.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't know, Orlando, Florida is the location of Disney World, and Disney World is a theme park. So we are shooting for right now for January 21st, 2022. And I like the format of Unconference, where we can invite as many different types of people to it, and people can put up topics. And I think it would be fantastic and fun if merchants would attend, and we would have, instead of just a hackathon, we would have a solution-a-thon where merchants could come with real life things they need to get done, and we could get as many of those things at least solutioned for that merchant in 1 or 2 days, or how much ever time we take, and then we can have a weekend of spending at Disney World or Universal themed or Epcot Center or any of the other places.
Enough parks there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And to be
and
honest,
now,
an unconference is a great concept. I've been to one here in the Netherlands, and people really put up valuable topics and discussions were going on. So it's a little bit less strict than a regular conference, but yeah, I got a lot of value out of it.
yeah, and just so the listeners know, the unconference concept is you don't have pre-packaged speaker slots. You have people that show up and they put up topics that they would like to present at the conference, and then the community votes on those topics, and then those topics get done over a period of time or get presented over a period of time. And I think it's a great concept, and it offers merchants to attend and get real-time feedback on a topic they would like to know about. And it also gives the opportunity to do side. I know we had hallway conversations and things like that. So if topics didn't get voted on, there was a hallway conversation setting where if there's only 2 people that are interested in the topic, they could go talk about the topic. If there's
Yeah.
if there's a whole bunch of people, then we all go to a room and listen to the presentation.
Cool.
And people do. I know at the time Vinay did Clojure. He's very big into the programming language Clojure, and I watched his presentation on Clojure, and he had a whole presentation all done up. So, you go into this hoping your presentation gets chosen. You may not get chosen, but most of them that do get chosen have something that's already prepared. So it's not just, hey, I want to present on JavaScript and then not have anything to present. It is well done. So great. Well, Danny,
January 2022, Orlando.
January of 2022, correct, in Disney World. Spread the news. Spread it to the Magento Association. We should make some kind of unconference Magento Association type event. And it will be it's not going to be like 400 people. It's probably going to be limited to like 150. Otherwise, the unconference doesn't work very well with too many people.
No.
All right. So Danny, thank you for being here. Danny Verkade is the
Thank you for having me.
Yes, is the CTO of Cream, a Dutch-based Magento shop.
Correct.
Good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Talk Commerce podcast is sponsored by SWIFTOTTER. E-commerce developers solve problems daily. In fact, some of those seem like mountainous hurdles that must be climbed in a matter of hours. Stress levels can go through the roof. No wonder the plague of burnout affects developers too. But there's a vaccine for that. Investing time in your career will take you farther than you ever imagined. Meet SWIFTOTTER. SWIFTOTTER exists to help you become the e-commerce hero that is indispensable and irreplaceable at your company. We do this through Magento certification study materials and Joseph Maxwell's most recent book, The Art of E-commerce Debugging. Go to SWIFTOTTER.com to learn more about how you can quickly climb the ranks in your quest to be a better developer. While you're there, use the coupon code TALKCommerce for 15% off any digital goods at SWIFTOTTER.com. Cloud is a new normal for companies of any size. Buying, maintaining, upgrading, and disposing of machines is expensive and complicated. Amazon Web Services, managed by eWay offers an easy-to-use, flexible, cost-effective solution to all your infrastructure needs. eWay can provide a secure, reliable, scalable, high-performance network that will make your office hum. Not literally. eWay has saved its customers an average of 31% on their IT costs while adding 62% to the bottom line efficiency. To top that, their customers have seen 43% fewer security incidents. Go to ewaycorp.com to learn how you can start saving money and headaches by moving to the cloud. That's ewaycorp.com. Thank you again for listening. My name is Brent Peterson, and it has been my pleasure to be your host today. Please rate and subscribe to Talk Commerce. New shows out every week.